If you grew up watching Star Trek, you probably dreamed of a future where you could step into a transporter and beam to anywhere in the universe. But some recent footage has people wondering if secret teleportation technology already exists today. December 2019. It's just after Christmas in the small community of Porter, north of Houston, Texas. A man is heading out alone on what seems like a normal Lone Star evening. But his doorbell is about to catch something extraordinary. The motion sensor records the man as he exits the front door and strolls casually down the walkway. But as he turns towards the driveway, he freezes momentarily and suddenly vanishes. Watch that again. And pay close attention to the ball of light that shoots up to the sky as he disappears. Did we just see an act of teleportation? Journalist MJ Banias, who reports on the unexplained, says it wouldn't be the first reported case.
Cultures and religions have been talking about the ability to travel great distances in a short period of time for generations. In Jewish Kabbalah, rabbis and ascetics could pray and meditate and enter a holy state where they would be able to perform a sort of teleportation act.
Let's teleport back from ancient Israel to modern Georgia. And this internet classic, a high-speed pursuit shot from a police dash cam in 1997.
Police officer is hot on the tail of someone who stole a car and is trying to chase him down. After a bunch of maneuvers on the road, in some bizarre twist, the car thief takes a left turn and disappears through a fence.
Lieutenant Wayne Daniels was at the wheel during this perplexing event.
When it all occurred, it happened so fast. I figured the fence would wrap him up, he'd be in a big old cocoon, but yet the fence was still standing in front of me and keeping me closed off from getting inside the yard. I had no idea to begin with how a car could get through a 10-foot chain link fence.
And just recently, we've seen headlines reporting that teleportation is now a matter of science, at least on the subatomic level.
So the idea has been around since Einstein. We've known that it's possible to teleport at least photons. And even more recently, scientists have been able to use quantum entanglement to teleport larger structures.
Now, based on some physics calculations, it's thought it would require the energy an entire city uses for a year to teleport a human being. But that hasn't stopped people from believing that advanced teleportation tech exists in secret. So do these videos prove it? Let's turn to our experts. First, Michael Primo examines the doorbell video.
So I've analyzed many Ring camera video recordings, but one thing that they all have in common is that they use a high level of what's called visual compression. So I employed what's called macro block analysis as well as motion vector analysis. These tests reveal that the encoder was not documenting new pixel information for 30 frames. It is entirely possible that this is encoder error. So there's several different reasons as to why this occurred at this specific point in time. The first is there was a drop in the internet connection to which the camera was not transmitting information to the cloud to actually document those frames. The second is simply camera malfunction.
So the glitching doorbell didn't capture teleportation in the act. But how did that car in the police video seemingly teleport to the other side of the fence? After some investigation, Lieutenant Daniels believes he solved the puzzle.
On most fence, when you set the poles, you put the fence on the outside of the poles so that it protects anyone from going through the fence into a yard. This particular fence was set on the back side of the post so that when the car hit the fence, the aluminum ties that hold the fence to the poles popped loose. The fence swung open like a garage door, and before the dust could settle, the fence had done come straight back down in front of me.
So our verdict on both of these videos? The anomaly of the teleporting Texan can be explained by a faulty camera. And the mystery of the vanishing Georgia bandit can be explained by a faulty fence. However, a recent experiment in 2017 by Chinese researchers did manage to teleport the quantum state of a photon to a satellite 870 miles in orbit. Perhaps the days of beam me up, Scotty, could be on the horizon. You ever get that feeling that you've been here before? And I'm not talking about deja vu. I'm talking about reincarnation. Millions believe in it as a matter of faith. But could there be photographic proof it's real? On the silver screen, actor Alec Baldwin has played dozens of characters. But some people think his greatest role wasn't an acting job, but instead as the 13th President of the United States, Millard Fillmore. Look closely. Those eyes, the nose, the mouth, and there's more. The internet has been buzzing with photos of celebrities and their uncanny counterparts. Not only Alec Baldwin, actors like Matthew McConaughey as this 1800s doctor, Orlando Bloom as a 19th century composer, and Johnny Depp as this early 20th century choir director. What if these aren't merely striking resemblances, but actual evidence of past lives? For Barbara Carlin, the idea of reincarnation isn't a theory.
I was about 2.5 years old, and my mother was calling my name. And then I said, yes, but my name is not Barbara. My name is Anne Frank.
Born in 1954, Barbara was a young writer like Anne Frank and published her first book of poetry at age 12. And Barbara insists she has vivid memories of her past life as the famed Dutch diarist.
I woke up almost every night screaming and crying and reliving what happened to me in my past life. It's like two worlds. I live in two worlds at the same time.
To her family, that seemed implausible, until they visited Anne Frank's home in Amsterdam.
I said, I know exactly where we are, and I led the way, and sure enough, there it was.
Barbara told a tour guide there were pictures missing from the walls.
And she said, Barbara, you are absolutely right. They had taken down those pictures to put them in frames, but they were there, and Anne Frank did put up those pictures. How could you know this?
Barbara was just one of many. Researchers at the University of Virginia corroborated 1,500 cases of past life memories. Could Baldwin, Depp, and McConaughey be other such cases? Now, these celebrity lookalikes are certainly striking, but are they really images of the same person? Let's put these photos to the test. Wonton Tat is the co-founder and CEO of Clearview AI, a widely used facial recognition technology.
The technology has really caught up, and so with the Clearview AI algorithm, if you've lost some weight and your face is thinner, if you grow out a long beard, we can still recognize you.
We gave Juan the photo of Alec Baldwin to see if it's a match with Millard Fillmore. In our first test, anything below a 0.8 on the scale is a match. Incredibly, the first test for Alec Baldwin came back just within range for the match category, a 0.78. Could it be possible? Not only are their faces similar, but Alec Baldwin's passion for politics is well known. It was once even rumored that he wanted to run for Senate. Clearview repeated the test, this time using 1.0 as the threshold, and once again, the results were astonishing.
Distance score is 1.04, barely above the threshold for a match. So we're very, very close to the line there, and that's kind of incredible.
The number was so shocking that a professional facial examiner was brought in to compare the photos. Juan explains that analysis.
When you look here, the first one is the lower lobe exterior shapes are quite different. And the other inconsistency was between the lips. And you can see that the photo A has a rounded upper lip, and photo B, which is Alec Baldwin, has a thinner upper lip.
So the photos are close, but not a perfect match. Neither was McConaughey, and we're still waiting to hear about Bloom and Depp. But the question remains, is reincarnation real? Barbara Carlin's answer is yes, a hopeful yes.
I have had these memories, and I have gone through this to be able to tell that there is always goodness and light at the end of the tunnel.
So is there truth to any of this? Well, I can't say. But there is definitely something very compelling about Barbara Carlin's story. But when it comes to Alec Baldwin and Millard Fillmore, our verdict, not a match. A quick warning that some viewers might find the following images disturbing. We're in Jambi, Indonesia. A father at a local bike shop is working as his kids play in front. Then, without warning, the family finds themselves in the path of fatal danger. Watch again. Let's slow it down and freeze. This appears to be the moment Dad senses the card. And in about 0.78 seconds, he springs into action and pulls the children to safety. Incredible. Similar displays of incredible parental reflexes have popped up recently, like in this video from Vietnam in 2019. Just watch that again. The woman is knocked off the motorbike, but still has the presence of mind to grab this child just before she's crushed by the oncoming truck. It's almost too fast to measure. Author Alexis Brooks says it might not just be fast reflexes at work here, but the power of premonition.
One of the theories that has been postulated by noted author Dr. Larry Dossey says that we all essentially have a premonition instinct, but particularly in the case of parents, where there is a unique bond with the child, premonitions can be even more likely.
But even if these parents had a premonition of danger, it's even more astonishing how quickly their bodies were able to react in a fraction of a second.
It's said that typically we only access a portion of our power, perhaps about 65%. But there is a phenomenon called hysterical strength.
There are dozens of anecdotal stories of humans in a moment of panic, summoning extraordinary strength to lift cars or other extremely heavy objects off of trapped individuals, including a mother in Georgia in 1982 who lifted a Chevy Impala off her trapped son.
When something is happening so quick, where there's no time to react, there is a rush of adrenaline that pushes us to do the unfathomable. And I think that might be something that we saw here.
Look, scientists are divided on the existence of this phenomena because it's nearly impossible to test emergency situations in a controlled lab. However, these videos might be proof of either parental ESP or superhuman reflexes. To be sure, we call in the experts.
Although it's entirely possible and conceivable to manipulate events like this using sophisticated software, technology, I don't see or detect any evidence to support that that's what was done here.
So the video is legit, but physicist Michio Kaku doubts it's proof of a premonition.
Sometimes we have premonition that an accident will happen, and then sometimes it does, in which case you think that maybe you're psychic. Most premonitions are false alarms, but 1 time out of 10, maybe it does prepare you for an emergency. So this ability of ours to, quote, predict the future by having a premonition is very selective. We forget all the misses.
So if this wasn't the result of a true premonition, perhaps these lightning-fast reflexes are related to hysterical strength.
Usually when you perform something, your prefrontal cortex acts as a check and says, slow down, do it this way, do it that way. However, in an emergency, where split-second decisions have to be made, a lot of the prefrontal cortex's decisions are overruled. All of a sudden, you take risks. Yes, muscles will tear. Yes, you're going to suffer damage, but you do it anyway because the adrenaline says you can do it.
Our verdict. While we can't prove or disprove these parents had a premonition, it was certainly adrenaline that gave them extraordinary reflexes at just the right time. It's March 2016. And the streets of Bogota, Colombia are swarming with traffic. So it's no surprise that a group of bystanders on a bridge started screaming when they saw this. Journalist Chrissy Elliott had the same reaction.
Oh my God. I was like, what is this guy doing? He dodges between vehicles, he lies underneath them, and then he just prances off.
Look again. The daredevil pedestrian seems to possess cat-like reflexes. Might there be a strain of superhumans with this kind of quickness?
It takes about a quarter of a second for a human reflex to react. 250 milliseconds. But there are people whose reaction time is even faster than that.
People like speed shooter Bob Munden, who holds 18 world records. He's been clocked hitting a target and replacing the gun in his holster within 175 milliseconds.
And this guy, if this is real, his reaction time must be on the next level.
Perhaps something else is going on here. Dodging traffic doesn't just take skill, it takes will.
There are about 400 known cases of something called Urbach-Wyeth disease. And what it does is it withers away at your amygdala, which is the part of your brain that is responsible for fear. So could this guy who's cartwheeling through traffic have this disease?
So we have two things to explain here. The traffic dodger's lightning-quick reflexes and his foolhardy fearlessness. Our investigation begins not with the person, but with the footage itself, as we turn to forensic video analyst Mick West.
What was strange to me was not simply how daring this was, but the fact that all the cars ignored him. They weren't actually slowing down or trying to stop or avoid him.
West's first impression tells him this traffic dodger may not be what he seems. But what clues are in the video?
What I often look at in analyzing videos is the lighting and the shadows. We can see the whole setup. There's this pole here, and then there's this power pole, and this is what's casting the shadows in the road. So we know that that's an actual shadow, and that's the shadow of the power pole. So that should be obscured by the cars when they go by the buses.
But watch closely as the bus approaches. Two shadows appear to exist in the same place.
Now, shadows don't add together like that. If something is a shadow and then something else shadows it, it eliminates the first shadow, because light doesn't go through things twice. Which means that this isn't a real shadow. This is something that's been added. It's kind of been overlaid on top.
That's not all West finds. Take a look as this guy lays down in the street.
This car really doesn't look like it's big enough to go over him. And I actually looked up the model of the car. It's a Renault Twingo, a small car. And the ground clearance is just under 7 inches. So it's about that much, which is impossible for someone to fit their head in something that's 150 millimeters.
So it turns out seeing isn't believing. Well, then how'd he do it? West says the camera was locked down at one position on the bridge.
There'd be no traffic. So he would just wait until there was a gap in the traffic. He would run out, do his stuff, and then get to the other side.
Then by combining the solo acrobatics with another shot of oncoming traffic and some staged screaming, you have one seemingly incredible superhuman.
All these add up to it being a forgery.
We contacted the creator of this video, and he told us there's no problem with his brain's amygdala. He fears danger just like the rest of us, but he did confirm one thing. This video is two different versions combined with digital effects and an extraordinary imagination.